Hello everyone. Once again, I welcome you to the Teachings of the Merchant of Venice by William Shakespeare. Today, I'll be discussing Act 2, Scene 2 here. But before proceeding towards the scene, let us see what we have discussed in the previous Scene 1. So let us have a brief up or the summary of Scene 1. Till now, in Act 2, Scene 1, we were at Belmont, where the Prince of Morocco arrives in order to win Portia's hand in marriage. And how? By participating in the lottery of caskets. The lottery of caskets, which was devised by Portia's dead father. Then we saw the prince ask Portia not to judge him by his dark complexion. Also, he assured her that he is as courageous as any other European man. Portia reminds the prince that her own likings or taste do not matter, since the process of picking chests stipulated in her father's will makes the prince as worthy as any other suitor. On the other side, the prince has a false notion of his own bravery and heroism. So, he boasted about his valor and achievements. Then we saw that further the prince asked Portia to lead him to the caskets where he may venture his guess. There she reminds him that the penalty for guessing incorrectly is that he must remain unmarried forever. The prince accepts this stipulation and Portia leads him off to the dinner. So this was what we read in scene 1. Today we'll be doing scene 2 from the act 2. One important literary term which I would like to discuss here before starting with scene 2 is soliloquy. What is soliloquy and why I am discussing it here? Firstly, I am discussing it here because in scene 2 we will find that Launcelot Gobbo indulges in a long soliloquy where we'll see his conscience is in conflict with the devil, and the scene is going to be full of comedy. So now the question arises that what is soliloquy? Soliloquy is a literary or a dramatic device which allows a character to reveal his thoughts to his audience but not to the other characters in the play, which means it is shown there that he is talking to himself, he is in debate with himself. So here we'll find Launcelot Gobbo is debating with himself, and it's a very common dramatic device which is used by, or which was recurrently used by Shakespeare during his time or in his writings, right? So when an actor was alone on the stage and he could speak aloud his thoughts, thus giving the audience clear idea into his character, his intentions, then that is the soliloquy. There are certain key points related to scene 2. We'll see that the initial emphasis in the scene is on Launcelot Gobbo, who is the Shylock's servant. Then we'll also read that the scene is divided into 3 sections. The first section will see Launcelot Gobbo, who plays a role of a clown or a joker here, indulges in a long soliloquy, that is, debating to himself as to whether or not he should remain in Shylock's service. And I have already informed you the meaning of soliloquy. Then in the second section, we'll find that Launcelot joins Bassanio's service. Also, Bassanio is ready to leave for Belmont, where he will be participating in the lottery of caskets to marry Portia. Then in the third section, will see Gratiano request Bassanio to let him accompany to Belmont. Right? So the scene is set up on the street of Venice, and Launcelot enters here. Launcelot is a fool or a clown who serves Shylock. He is a servant to Shylock. Here in the first dialogue of Launcelot, we'll find him talking to himself, and as I told you people, it is he is involved in a long soliloquy over here, right? So there is a conflict between his conscience and his devil. Two things, one is conscience and the other is devil. So there is conflict between conscience and devil. Here Launcelot decides to leave the job of Shylock or the services of Shylock and join Bassanio's services, right? Okay, just see here. The fiend is at mine elbow and tempts me, saying to me, Gobbo, Launcelot, Gobbo, good Launcelot, good Gobbo, good Launcelot. Gobbo, use your legs, take the start and run away. So his devil part is telling him to run away from his master's services. Whereas the other part, the good part, that is telling him, no, take heed, honest Launcelot, take heed, honest Gobbo, or as aforesaid, honest Launcelot Gobbo, do not run, scorn running with thy heels. So his good part is telling him not to run away, right? The devil part is telling him to run away, whereas the good part is stopping him, right? And what is telling him? Pleading with my heart and telling you, my honest friend Launcelot, since you are an honest man, so do not run away. So here throughout we'll find that he is in debate with himself, right? Then by the end of this dialogue we'll see that his father, that is old Gobbo, enters here. Old Gobbo is his father, Launcelot's father, right? So what happens here? Now old Gobbo, that is Launcelot's father, enters here into the scene, and here he inquires about the Jew's house, Master Jew's house, right? Because he wants to meet his son. Then Launcelot, what he says to himself, that he talks to himself that, oh, it is my father only, right? The one who has brought me into this world. True begotten means the one who has brought me into this world. So he is my father only, and he is sand blind. Sand blind means half blind, almost blind, right? So what he does, he try to confuse him with the directions. He give him confusing directions to the house of Shylock, right? Fine. Next, what happens? See, Launcelot says, as I told you people, that he tries to confuse him with certain confusing directions. So he tells him, turn up on your right hand at the next turning of all on your left, Mary at. Here Mary stands for the statue of Virgin Mary or the Blessed Mary, right, which is there in one part of the street or at a corner of a street, right? Then turn off no hand but turn down indirectly to Jew's house. So in this way he tells him the direction to the Jew's house or the Shylock house, right? Gobbo, by God's sonties, it will be hard way to hit. वो कह रहा, oh my God, it's very hard way. The one which you have told me, it's very difficult path. So could you please tell me whether Launcelot lives with him or not, right? Then further, Launcelot said, "Talk of you, young master Launcelot, mark me now, now will I raise the waters, talk you of young master Launcelot." Do you talk about young master Launcelot, right? So, what he does, Launcelot talking to himself again, right? Mark me now. Mark me now means just look at me. He's talking to himself. Look at me, what I have done. I have raised the waters, means tears into the eyes of whom? Of my father, right? And once again, talking to Gobbo, he asked that, are you talking about Launcelot? So in this way, here is the just a small conversation between Launcelot and Gobbo, through which Shakespeare tries to bring out the humor into the play, right? One of the important things which we need to discuss over here is this stanza of Launcelot. Launcelot, ergo Master Launcelot, talk not of Master Launcelot, father for the young gentleman, according to fates and destinies and such odd sayings, the sisters, the three, and such branches of learning, is indeed deceased, or as we would say in plain terms, gone to heaven. So here Launcelot says ergo. Ergo stands for therefore. So Launcelot again questions his father that, are you talking about Master Launcelot, the young gentleman? Then he is gone to heaven. He is dead. So how he describes this part, what he says, he talks about fates and destinies, about the three sisters. Now who are these three sisters? The three Greek sisters, that is Clotho, Leches, and Atropos. They were called the fates and destinies. These three Greek sisters, they were called as the fate and destinies. So what he is saying, that according to his fate, according to the fate of Launcelot, right, or such things, what happened to him? He is gone to heaven. He calls Launcelot here as Launcelot calls Gobbo here as father. Make sure he is not calling him his father, rather it's a very common way of addressing an old man, right? And Launcelot uses it for comedy purpose. Just make it clear over here. So here he talks about three sisters, that is, one is Clotho, right? Second is Laches, and third one is Atropos. So these are the three great sisters known as the fates and destinies. And why he has used these words here? Because Shakespeare wants to satirize those people, right? It is satirical comment on those people who are not used to use a plain speech. Rather, they like to make use of learned words and phrases. So this is the reason that at the very end of his dialogue, Launcelot says that if you want to know it in plain terms, in simple words, then simply I would like to say that he is no more, he is dead, he is gone to heaven. So these are the usage of learned words or phrases which people usually love to do in olden times or in Shakespearean time. So this is all about Launcelot and Gobbo, right? Then in the second part, we'll see that Bassanio enters with Leonardo, who is his one of the servants, and other followers. Here what we'll see that Bassanio is giving instructions to his servant about preparing the liveries or the costumes for the servants. Then on the other side, we'll see Launcelot and Gobbo is in conversation with Bassanio and requesting Bassanio to keep Launcelot in his services, because he feels that Bassanio has more money as compared to Shylock and is a better master as compared to Shylock. What Launcelot and Gobbo were doing, they were jumping into each other's conversation, right? So this confuses Bassanio, and Bassanio tells them that one of you speak for both. You are confusing me, so one of you speak for both, right? So Launcelot makes it clear that he wishes to serve Bassanio. Then further down, we'll see that Bassanio agrees to keep Launcelot as his servant, and he tells him to take leave of from his old master, that is Shylock, and join his services, right? So here Launcelot and Gobbo, they exit the scene, and Gratiano enters into the part. So this is the third section over here, third section about which we were talking. As Gratiano enters upon the scene, he requests Bassanio to take him with him to Belmont. But Bassanio instructs Gratiano to be careful about his wild and rude behavior, right? He needs to behave well, then only he will be taking him to Belmont. Gratiano accepts it. He informs that he would put on a sober habit, a good attitude, or a good character, right? And this is how the scene, this section of this scene 2 prepares us for the marriage of Gratiano to Nerissa, and also his participation in the ring episode, which we'll be reading later on by the end of the play. So in this way, Bassanio agrees to take Gratiano with him to Belmont, and then they move for the supper, and here the scene 2 gets over. Let us now look what we read in scene 2. We'll have a short summary of it. So after the last serious scene in Belmont, here we return to Venice, and the initial emphasis here is on Launcelot Gobbo, that is Shylock's servant. Launcelot is debating with himself as to whether or not he should remain in Shylock's services. He is tempted to leave and find employment elsewhere, right? But he is unable to make up his mind. The decision is difficult, he says, for he feels the weight of his conscience hanging about the neck of his heart. Then the comedy builds when the Launcelot's father, old Gobbo, comes on the stage. As old Gobbo is more than a sand blind and was not able to recognize his son, so this gives a drift to our drama. It gives a punch of comedy to our drama. He sees before him only the dim image of a man who he hopes can direct him to the Shylock's house. And Launcelot is very delighted to encounter his father, whom he has not seen for a long time. So he conceals or hides his true identity and playfully confuses the old Gobbo with much clowning and double take, right? So in this way he gives him very confusing directions. This is what we read over there. Then next, in the next part of the scene, or in the next scene, what we saw is that Bassanio enters, right, along with his servant Leonardo and other followers, and he was talking about the preparation for the tonight's dinner. Then what happens? See, Bassanio now enters along with Leonardo and other followers, and he is enthusiastically talking of preparations for dinner tonight, complete with a mass to which he has invited his friends to celebrate his departure for Belmont, where he will begin his courtship of Portia. Launcelot is quick to note Bassanio's good mood and he immediately speaks to him about Bassanio's hiring him as a servant. So here Bassanio agrees and orders a set of new livery for his new servant, that is Launcelot, and also tells Launcelot to inform his old master. So again this part is preparing us for the elopement scene of Jessica and Lorenzo, right? Gratiano then at the last section of this scene, Gratiano enters, right, searching for Bassanio, and he asks Bassanio that he also wants to join him for Belmont. Bassanio is hesitant earlier, but then finally gives his consent to Gratiano, but tells him to modify his wild behavior, right? To which Gratiano agrees, and then in this way both of them set out for Belmont. Though this is a very small summary for the Act 2 of Scene 2.